Hey guys, so our next assignment will be to illustrate a portrait. I've asked everyone to choose a face to work with, one that they want to look at for the remainder of the week. It's going to take a few days for you to actually develop your portrait fully, and studying the face of someone that you admire for some reason, that you look up to, that you idolize for a positive reason is always a good idea. I decided for this demo I was going to illustrate one of my favorite actresses of all time, Kate Winslet. She has a lot of positive qualities that I look up to in terms of her career and just being a very great humanitarian and celebrity. The first thing I asked everybody to do for this assignment is, again, to find a reference photo that works well, and we wanted to fit it onto a kind of computer sheet, letter size sheet of paper in portrait fashion, so vertically. And when you find the image and you copy and paste it onto your Word document, the first thing you want to do is you want to minimize your margins, okay? And you can do that by going into layout and margins and choosing narrow margins. And if the option is available, you're best off to even click on custom or customized margins, where you can actually minimize your margins as low as 0.35. Some computers might even take 0.33, and that's basically as small as the margins will go, however still be printable. So you can still get away with printing the image with margins this small. It maximizes the amount of space that we have to stretch out our reference photo. And of course, before you go ahead and stretch it using the diagonal tab as suggested in class, it is important that you crop the photo down into what the portrait needs to include. And traditionally, a portrait would include the bust of someone, meaning their face, their neck, and maybe a little bit of their upper body, their shoulders and upper chest. You could even do a close-up. And I did one example of a close-up with the class earlier where I showed them how to do a close-up portrait, where again, it just kind of focuses more on the face. Maybe part of the upper hairline is missing, however, ears are still there. The hair still frames the face, and you have a little bit of the individual's neck, but you don't necessarily have their shoulders in there and space around their face. This works. It's a little bit bolder of a portrait style. The important thing to note is that, again, you've got all your features there, some external features, and of course the neck, so that it doesn't just look like a floating head. And you want to frame the face so that the eyes sit a quarter way down the page. Make sure that the eyes are not in the center or too high up. You really want the eyes to be about quarter way down. Same idea if you are deciding to include more of the exterior around the face, including neck and shoulders. You still want to fit the individual onto your letter size sheet with their eyes coming down about a quarter way down the page. Naturally, any viewer looking at any piece of art, not necessarily just a photograph, the viewer's eyes will first focus in quarter way down the page. So the first thing you want someone to look at, obviously, are one of the person's best features, which would be their eyes. You wouldn't want the eyes a little further down on the page, because then the first thing someone sees looking at the photo is their forehead. Okay, and then it gives the illusion that the individual that you drew has this massive forehead, when really it appears to be so large because that's the first thing that your eyes go to, okay? So making sure that the person's eyes sit at the place quarter way down, again, where the viewer's eyes would naturally first go, that's the first thing we're going to look at, and then our eyes kind of take in the information that is surrounding those features, okay? And once we do that, the first thing we want to do in this assignment is grid it. So to help the grade 9 and or 10 students working on this assignment, we've decided to go with the gridding method. It's going to help us transfer basic features onto our good copy sheet of drawing paper, and then we can apply everything that we've learned so far about shading. So going back to what we have discussed in this class regarding drawing and shading, okay, we did an intro on how to use pencils to create various values from light to dark. We know that value doesn't only refer to pencils and grayscale. Any hue, any color can have value ranging from light to dark. But in this case, we're working with drawing, and our medium is pencil. So we are working with a grayscale. Okay. To date, we've discussed how to take basic geometric forms or basic shapes that we've turned into forms, and then we've shaded to look even more 3D. We've discussed the importance of laying out a highlight based on where the light source is hitting that object. And we know that there's a mid-tone that describes the natural color of the object, and core shadows that describe areas that recede, that receive shadow, where the light source is not hitting the object. Okay, then we've applied that knowledge to shading in some basic things, trees, animals, things that you might see in nature, right? That might have that organic curve to them. We discussed shading and facial features in this unit in particular. Drawing an eye, that's a bit more realistic. Treating the eye like a sphere, giving the white of the eye a little bit of a shadow and a highlight to make it look more spherical as opposed to just two-dimensional almond shape. The tip of the nose, right? We discussed that the nose is comparable to a sphere, and that the stem of the nose or the bridge of the nose is comparable to the way that you would shade a cylinder, and so on. Other facial features. The idea that when something is plumper or rounder, that's probably where the light is going to hit the surface of the face quickest, so light might bounce off of those surfaces, creating a bit of a highlight. So lifted areas often have highlight. And the parts of the face that receive back, like the sides of the nose or the bottom of the nose or the eyelid, anything that receives a little bit of a shadow. The next discussion that we had that we'll be applying to this final assignment, this portrait assignment, is proportion of those features, taking into consideration how big the eyes should be, the nose should be, the mouth should be, the ears should be in relation to each other when they are placed onto a face. The first thing that we noted was obviously that we want to lay eyes smack in the middle of the head, between the very top of the head and the bottom of the jawline. As we know on a skull, eye sockets are found right in the middle. So eyes would be placed right in the middle of the face that you would map out, keeping in mind that you want roughly enough space to fit a third eye. Obviously, we're not going to include a third eye, but you should be able to include a third eye in between, okay? And then keeping other things in mind, like a natural mouth or set of lips would go eye to eye, unless the person was making an exaggerated expression. Of course, here we have a relaxed face, so our mouth wants to sit in proportion to those eyes. And the brows go from about the start of the eye, just past the eye, often arch right above the iris. Ears fit in between the eye and the tip of the nose, and things like that. So we'll be applying all of that knowledge to our final portrait. Okay, because the first thing that we want to do is relay the face and proportionate features that obviously match the unique qualities of the person you're trying to illustrate. And then from there on, we're responsible for applying various values and various shading techniques to map out the highlights, midtones, and shadows on their face and other features to end up with something that is realistic and naturalistic as opposed to looking cartoonish or animated. Okay, I do have a few examples of grade 9 projects done before following these steps. So again, this one here of Chris Martin from Coldplay, I had a student that idolized Chris for his many talents, and he did a fairly good job. On camera, it's appearing to be a little bit low contrast, meaning some areas could appear a little bit darker. But overall, he's achieved a pretty realistic feel to the face. The background was not necessarily to shade in, that was the student's choice, and that's kind of giving it a little bit of a lower contrast feel right now. And then we have one more here. The shadows around the eyes are a little bit dark, but overall I feel like she did a really nice job shaping the nose without using any harsh lines on the sides. And of course getting the contour of the face in. So when you're going to choose someone to work with, again, choose someone who you admire, because it's the easiest to study someone that you do admire and qualities that you aspire to live up to, as opposed to just drawing a random face that's meaningless. If you would like to do a self-portrait, I would recommend getting a nice selfie of yourself or someone to take a nice photo of you, where again you have a fairly relaxed expression, just because this is an introductory portrait assignment. We don't want to really be running into issues surrounding, drawing a lot of facial accessories like glasses or facial hair or tattoos. Or again, if you have an exaggerated expression with a big smile and there's a lot of teeth and tongue in the way, those are just extra challenges and bumps in the road that you'll have to face when illustrating. As a beginner, I would recommend, again, choosing a very relaxed face where the person might be smiling, but you might not have a lot of teeth or tongue showing. I would maybe avoid any tattoos and a lot of facial hair, just so that you can focus on contouring the actual form of their face. And then when you feel comfortable with drawing a face, maybe step up to doing a second portrait that has more items on it, such as sunglasses or reading glasses or facial hair. Okay, so again, at this point, you're going to choose an image of someone, copy and paste it onto a Word document, crop it so that you have the person's face, some of their hair, some of their neck, possibly some of their shoulders, but you can stick to just face and neck and not kind of collarbone area. And if you are choosing to do a dramatic close-up, then you're just kind of including part of their neck and taking away a little bit of the sides of their, not necessarily their face, but their hair. And you have to balance that out by taking a little bit of the top of their head off, because whether you're doing one that is kind of traditional like this or a close-up, you want to make sure that eyes are always a quarter way down the page. Okay?